The Team House with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
I want to talk about the Jessica Lynch rescue. Like, when did that come up on your radar and you guys got tapped for that?
Well, obviously, when that motorcade got attacked, it came on our radar because there was dead Americans as well as some that were missing. So we were briefed on it as much as we could be. We were still doing our ongoing missions, and we'd get an intel spike on her location or others. And, we'd get spun up to go and it would fall through or whatever. But then that real intel came in when that doctor, whatever he was, brought that briefcase with the camera in it. And he actually had a proof of life and where she was. And we rolled out pretty quick that night, actually.
Can you tell us about the op and how it went down?
Yeah, it was ginormous. I think we were in Baghdad, and that guy I spent the time with on AFO, again, his name was Hans. They loaded us. Hans was running our sniper cell, and I was running the assault side. They sent us up to Nasiriyah, and just him and I. The helicopter took us up there, and we met. It was a one-star general who sees us, and now he's ready to take the bridge and go hit he was a motivated young one-star, and it was quite cool. The Marines had gotten their ass kicked a little bit there. I think they lost a number of people in that Nasiriyah area, and he was ready to go light it up. And we're like, sir, we're here, for the Lynch thing and the plans of. So the planning had already started, and that was one of DEVGRU's downfalls. I think they were always, not always, but sometimes just late to the game on the initial planning. And you have to be, especially when you're doing it with conventional forces, which I think there were 1,400 people involved in that Jessica Lynch.
Wow.
Night. My troop had 23 guys, and we had we were the hospital clearance. But there was like 1,400 people. One, she's a hot blonde from West Virginia. So, there was a lot of public outcry and motivation to go get her. So I think if I had been in one in the hospital, I think I'd still be there. But it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was Jessica. So the planning was already ongoing when it was the night before the op, when Hans and I got there. They had the table built and they had the schematics from the hospital. I think that was built by the Japanese. It's amazing their ability to pull up stuff like that sometimes. So we're looking at that, but our quick reaction force were Rangers, and their insertion point was something like 800 meters away. And I'm looking at the maps and I'm thinking, we could probably get them a little closer. 800 meters can be a long way, especially in a bad area. So I'm thinking along those lines. And then they had the breach point. There was a big wall on the outside of the hospital, and the Rangers are going to breach here and then clear these auxiliary buildings. But anything downrange of those buildings were the hospital where we're going to be. So I finally spoke up. I'm like, hey, I don't really like the insertion point for the QRF. And if we breach this wall instead of that wall, anything, your field of fire is not going to have us downrange of. And that one star is like, hold what you got. We went and had a cup of coffee, started yelling at me about where the commanding officer was. And I'm like, sir, I don't know where my commanding officer is. Just me and Hans. He's like, your points are valid, but this has already been planned and that's what we're going with. And I'm like, okay. So the next morning our boys got there, we drew it out the best we could, and then we initiated it. Some little birds, some 60s. There was talk as to whether to keep a 60. Well, we had ISR, so a lot of vehicles are moving in and out, but I went in on the little bird to see if the front door was going to be a breach point or not. It wasn't. Whether we kept a 60 spinning on the deck right out front. I think the hospital was 7 stories. She was on the 2nd floor. Again, there's so many details, and I don't want to bore you or whoever's listening.
I love hearing it.
But it went as well as it could go. A good friend of mine who I had worked for another agency, had worked with me in Afghanistan, speaks the language. I put him on one of our back helicopters to come with us, and his name's Dan. I'm like, Dan, as soon as you see somebody that looks in charge, snatch them up and find out where Jessica is. We knew where she was, but I'm like, just in case. And if she's not there, have that dude at the top of the stairs, 2nd floor again. So sure enough, we got to her room, locked, shotgunned our way in, and she's not there. So that was one of the worst radio calls you ever can make. It's like a dry hole or something like that. So I put that out, worked our way back to the staircase, and there was Dan and this dude and the security guy, and he's like, "No, she's down here in this room," and sure enough, there she was.
Wow.
So, you had to think, got a doc in, he assessed her. Pararescue guy was with me, and I think we had her from finding her to having her on that 60 in like 9 minutes on time on target. And there's a lot of things that happened that I would have liked to have cleared the rest of the hospital, because the last thing we wanted is to carry her out and somebody from a top floor having an angle down on that 60 or on her or on us. But decision was made to move her as fast as possible, and we did. So we did spend the rest of the night there. Our quick reaction force didn't get there in a very timely fashion. Again, nothing against the Rangers, but it took a little while.
A not very quick QRF.
Yeah, well, it was it wasn't great, but those guys were amazing. They got there, and that same doctor or people in the hospital had pointed out where remains were buried out front, and they literally dug them up with their hands. And it pretty moving, amazing stuff. So yeah. I mean, it gives me like it was an incredible night. Obviously, we went and got the little hot blonde. We got out of there. Things went super good. Spent a night hanging out there with some good friends. And then the next night, they launched us on some bullshit, back to what we talked about earlier that nobody will ever know about. But it was something I'll always remember. And I think I sent you a picture. I was one of the guys that carried her down the stairs, and she was a mess. She wasn't saying anything that made any sense, but she said something going down the stairs, and I'm not going to quote it, but it was English. And I'm like, thank God, man, maybe this chick's going to be okay. And I told myself that one day I'd like to have a beer with her. And through some other program that had her on, that the guy knew me, put us in contact. She was out in Phoenix for her friend Peshua, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing that name, that got killed in her vehicle with her and her good friend in the Army. There was something going on for Private Peshua in Phoenix, and she was going to be out there and contacted me. So I drove up and I had a beer with her, and it was super cool. And I thoroughly enjoyed that beer. She's a good young lady.
Now, it's interesting because this goes back to what your primary mission was, the counterterrorism and hostage rescue. And this was the first successful hostage rescue since World War II, right?
I've heard that. I'm not a historian.
Well, there was Kurt Muse is the other one that comes up in my mind that gives me goosebumps, where American troops coming in, and I mean that's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, where was that one? Was that Vietnam?
Panama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right. Kurt Muse.
I don't know if there could be a better feeling. And like I said, we drew it out as best we could. Like, there's the stairs, there's the front door, the stairs inside. We had a video of it all. That guy that got us that intel, I mean, I don't know where he is today, but God bless him. So we had as much as we could ask for. And then I'm with my men, and, we knew we might get our ass kicked. And flying in, I'm on the outside of one of the little birds, and it's like it's like a movie scene, except for a lot of nights were. But that night, I mean, it was they were doing distraction fires, and by distraction fires, I mean they were lighting the hell out of the places around there, and it was just amazing to sit outside a little bird going in to do something like that.
Yeah.
And as we were loading up, the guys could not have been more fired up. I think we got word that day. I think it was April Fool's Day that night that we went in to get her. But that day, like at 1300, we got word that she was killed. And you want to talk about being demoralized. Like, the guys were ready to go. Like, we didn't care if it was daylight or like, let's launch, even though that would be stupid. And quickly that changed, obviously. And off we went. But the guys were very super motivated. And hostage rescue is a whole different animal.
Yeah.
There's no barricade of flow or anything like that. It's get to your principal, period.
Right.
Whether it's stepping over friends or whatever, you cannot slow down the assault on a hostage rescue. Obviously, we could talk more as more of those things happen, as those wars progressed, and some more lessons learned from different places all over the world. But that particular night, it was go find the little blonde chick, and we did.
Well, that
if she's listening, I apologize to her. I called her a little blonde chick or hot many times. So sorry, Jessica. So I'll buy you another beer.
you're a seal. Everybody will forgive it. And tip of the hat to the guy.